covered only 1,000 square miles. Pretty good sized, if you ask me. The ordinary polis was far smaller and numbered its adult male citizens as a few thousand at the most. So that's like, there's London, and then there's, Wankershire, or whatever. The historic Greek world consisted of some 200 odd absolutely independent city-states. Now, Athens gives us, it bequeaths to us what we think of as Greece. And in fact, what we know of Sparta largely comes from what Athens said about Sparta. But there were lots of other city-states, lots of interesting actions by those other city-states. 200, that's a lot. Kathleen Freeman has a book, Greek City-States, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be taking from this later. It's a pretty good read. I don't know. I think it's a pretty good read. It's the Organization, History, and Diversity of the Cultures of 9 Representative City-States of Ancient Greece. So she goes outside the usual Athens and Sparta, which is kind of like all you can talk about until you get a bit deeper into the story. Then there are a couple, 3 or 4 others. She blows the crow and goes with 9. Good stuff. A modern observer might expect that, as the Greeks came together in tighter political unity, they would have done so under the direction of the kings. This was the course which the evolving national states of Western Europe followed in the Middle Ages. So is that what happened in Greece? Greece did not follow the same path. Skipping a bit there. During the Age of Revolution, kings virtually disappeared in most Greek states, though they lingered on in Sparta, Argos, and a few other areas. Instead, the Greeks improved their political and military machinery for collective action. Collective action. It's a bad word in some people's vocabulary, but in the sense of democracy, as opposed to action directed by a dictator, collective action has a positive ring to it. For collective action, and underwrote this unity by guarantees of common justice and by patriotic symbols, especially in the field of religion. This more perfected, more conscious union was the polis. Now we talk about the physical qualities and government of the polis. The average Greek polis was no larger than a small American county. Its frontiers were usually natural boundaries, such as the sea or ranges of hills, but a state like Athens comprised several plains and valleys, while the open country of Boeotia was divided into several states. As a result of its smallness, the citizens of a polis could assemble fairly easily at a central point for major political and religious activities. Pause for just a moment there. I believe it's Federalist Paper 93 or 79. Oh man, both of those might be way off. That discusses why it is that a free people could have a republic scattered over a great broad area. Because one of the standard arguments off the cuff at the time was a republic is going to have to be a small local unit, the way the Greek city-states were, so that all your citizenry can get together at once and have a say on things. And which of the founding fathers, I don't know, bothered to look it up at the time, or in ancient Greece, was Madison, Adams, and Jay. I think Madison made the case that it's better to have the large scattered republic, because then you can't have factions all get together. There would never be unified factions. If they could just see America today, the Republicans and Democrats, 2 unified factions. But anyways, off the subject, my goodness, we're off the subject. So in the polis, it was centralized. People could get together at a single time for major political and religious activities. This central point usually was a grouping of villages far enough inland to be safe from sudden seaborne raids. At times there was a hill, like the Acropolis at Athens, which could serve as a refuge, and on which a temple could be erected to the patron divinity of the polis, Athena at Athens. Now I'm going to introduce a vocabulary word. No, not really, but here's a word you should know if you read Plato's dialogues. Socrates will be on his way down to the agora to meet up with so-and-so, or they've just come from the agora where they met so-and-so and they're going down to such and such's palace to discuss such and such while they drink wine, or whatever. Something about the agora. Indeed, the sentence for Socrates to drink hemlock was passed in the agora. The agora is the marketplace. Below the Acropolis, below the hill on which the state or patron divinity temple was, below it lay an agora, an open place where the citizens met in political assembly and also engaged in trade. The modern equivalent of polis, city-state, is somewhat misleading, for only as trade and industry grew after 700 did true city clusters begin to appear in the Greek world. Most of the citizens dwelt in farming villages over the countryside. So it's only after 700 did real cities actually begin to occur. It's mostly agrarian even after that, but that's when there was some sort of culmination of activity. We skip just a bit. The citizens of a polis assembled periodically to vote on major issues and to elect officials. The role of the assembly tended to grow as the city-states coalesced, and a mark of this growth was the creation of a steering committee, or a council to prepare its business. Such councils had appeared about 600 BC at Sparta and Athens. Elsewhere, however, the council represented the developing aristocracy and really ran the government. So around 600. End of the Dark Ages, 800. These developments from 7 to 650, and the point where they actually have a bureaucracy develop, where they actually have a council that steers the stuff that the Senate or whatever looks at, 600 BC. Another couple hundred years are left before we get to Plato and Aristotle in the Golden Age. So in the cases elsewhere besides like Sparta and Athens, where the council represented the developing aristocracy, it wasn't of the people, it was for the rulers or whatever, and it really sort of ran the government. Quote, "In these cases its members were chosen in one way or another virtually for life. Even in those states where the assembly had genuine powers, membership was limited in early days to landholders or was otherwise restricted." I have to intersperse a funny comment here. Benjamin Franklin is talking about the idea of property restrictions on vote. You have to have so much land or whatever to be able to vote. And he says, let's imagine that the vote says you have to have at least one donkey. So the man owns a donkey, and one day he can vote, and the next day the donkey dies, and the man no longer has vote. So Benjamin Franklin poses the query, which had the vote, the man or the ass? But anyways, it was restricted to landholders and so on. Quote, "Generally, the single office of king was replaced by a number of officials. One such officer might still be called king, so as to conduct the ancestral religious rites which the gods expected from kings. Another would be the general. At Athens they called them the polemarch, P-O-L-E-M-A-R-C-H. Another, the civil head. Another one of the people might be called the civil head, the A-R-C-H-O-N at Athens, archon or archon. Others directed the judicial machinery and supervised state cults, state religions. It wasn't until Roman times that we had religious toleration. That came later on. Alright, now we skip just a bit of Marxist propaganda, I'm afraid. Some about rich and poor were not too sharply distinguished. Baloney. The lower classes were willing to see the kings disappear and to permit the upper classes to take over the